hello to everyone online. This is Vaughn at Spirit of Health. We're going to talk about one of my favorite topics today, which is fasting. If you have a question, throw it out. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I answer questions during, sometimes I say, well, to the end. But for whatever reason, I feel like today, if you want to ask a specific question, just go ahead and ask it and we'll address it. But we do a little Q&A at the end if you want to save your questions. I don't know, I'll probably go over an hour. Y'all can leave if I don't know why I said y'all, I'm not from the South. But you guys can leave if you need to. That's totally cool. I'm honored that people come here on a Saturday to listen to something like this because I know what my life's like with 3 kids and a family, and it's crazy. So I know everybody's life is really busy these days. So honestly, like, I'm really honored that you'd come out and talk about it. I wish there were some guys here, but hey, whatever, right? They're so stubborn. Oh wait, Joshua's here. Oh, it's because I'm paying him, right? Oh, I'm just kidding. He's like, So yeah, we're going to talk about the power of fasting. It is one of my favorite topics because, just to premise this, as many of you know, but for those who don't know or who watch this later, I look at everything from a design perspective, from a how did God create the world to function perspective. How did God design the world? How did He design our bodies? How are things supposed to work based off of creation and design? And so why I'm so passionate about this topic, and I could just say some really bold things right now, so I will, because that's just kind of who I am. But fasting is probably the number one thing anyone can do to overcome chronic illness, to live longer, to have a spiritual encounter with the one who created them. Fasting's probably the number one threat to the medical industry, because if people learn how to fast, they wouldn't be sick. Fasting would destroy the food industry because we're all foodaholics and most of us are sick because of food to some extent, or addictions or whatever it is. So I really believe that fasting is a discipline that needs to come back into our culture because we are so ingrained with the world and the things of the world. Whether we want to admit it or not, whether we actually see that or not, whether we're Christians or not, we are totally like engulfed in Babylon. So, hey, I just said it, okay? Those are some of the things that I believe. So if we want to separate, if we want to get out of the system, if we want to, achieve better health and spirituality, but I mean, if we want to separate from kind of all the things of this world that Romans 6, 7, and 8, like I could just read Romans 6, 7, 8 like over and over and over again, right? Because it's like, it impacts me so deeply, but at the same time, it's like, that's so hard, right? Like the battle of the flesh versus the spirit. But fasting really is a discipline, I think, that can help move us in that direction. And it's something we can teach, kids, anybody can do it. Like there's all these, I think, myths about fasting that like women can't fast and kids should never fast. And it just depends on what your definition of fasting is, right? So I think in today's culture, if you ate like 2 meals a day instead of 3, like people think you're like some extreme weirdo, right? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, I've never missed a meal in my life. So again, it depends on like what our definition of fasting is. So sorry for your little boxes. This is a presentation I did at the Cellular conference. I don't know if any of you guys use Cellular stuff? Okay, so I spoke at their conference on fasting in front of like over 1,000 people. That was intimidating. But this is a presentation, and this was the one I sent them, and they needed that anyway. So sorry for the little weird boxes on there, but so this is me. I have been doing this for 15 years. I think we're going to throw a party in March because March 21st will be 10 years in Grandview, which is crazy. And I don't know if any of you were around back in the day, but we used to throw big parties like every year. We did do these big health fairs. I don't know if anybody was friends with Rachel and Walese Faagutu. They would come here and like sing, and we'd get a stage and they'd MC the event, and they had little songbirds and they had kids do stuff, and one year we even did this whole, like, we created a scenery and created a play. And I mean, we used to do crazy stuff. I don't know how we had time to do all that, but so 10 years in Grandview in March. So that's cool. And then, yeah, just fasting, just what I've done personally. And yeah, it's not easy. I really am a big fan of intermittent fasting, because then you make it more of a lifestyle. It's not just like, oh, I did a 10-day water fast once. Like, that's cool, but putting something into practice every day is really powerful, because that's going to lead to long-term results, especially in physical and spiritual sense. But if your goal is to heal your body of a chronic illness, for example, living an intermittent fasted type of a lifestyle is going to get you there faster. And we're going to talk about why. I've only done one 40-day water fast. I tried to do another one. Lou Engle actually called a water fast 40-day water fast. It just happened to be March of 2020. And so I was 18 days into a water fast, and then all what broke loose with the vid, and everyone here was going crazy. I was in a cabin in the woods, and my wife called me, and I was like, "Can I stay here?" And she's like, "No, they're saying there's going to be martial law," and everybody was freaking out, right? So anyway, I broke that fast. So juice fasting, I really like juice fasting. I've done 40-day juice fasting a couple times, or do a 21-day juice fast. My wife and I agreed to start just gonna at least do 7 days, maybe longer, but on Monday we're gonna start a juice fast, just my wife and I together. Grape fasting's amazing. There's a book called The Grape Cure, about a gal who cured herself of breast cancer just eating grapes. That's pretty fascinating. So I've done 10-day grape fast before. I'm going to do a grape fast in September, because September, just so you know, is grape season. And I'm going to go to a local vineyard, and I'm going to pick seeded Concord grapes, because it's really hard to find seeded grapes. I don't know if anybody's looked, but that's weird, right? Because seedless grapes are not normal. Like, God would have never created a grape that can't reproduce itself. Like, that doesn't even make sense, right? So yeah, unfortunately, it's hard to find seeded watermelons or seeded grapes or any of these things, but the life is in the seed. So then you can't get seeded grapes. So then you have to go to a health food store and you have to buy grape seed extract. Like, that's how messed up our world is, right? Anyway, water fasting, dry fasting. So dry fasting is the most powerful form of fasting. I've never done more than 3 days on a dry fast. Done a lot of 36-hour dry fasts. My wife's done multiple 36-hour dry fasts. I could tell you some pretty funny stories and some kind of creepy stories related to fasting. Oh, do you want to hear one? Okay. I'll put, I won't say who it is, but it's somebody really close to me. Let's just say that, so I don't get in too much trouble. But chronic, really, really, really bad, debilitating tooth pain. And I was like, why don't you do a dry fast? And, because it'll probably knock out the pain. So she did a 36-hour dry fast. So the way you do a 36-hour dry fast is you stop all food and drink after dinner, and then you dry fast the next day, no food or water the next day. And then by the time you go to sleep and get up the next morning, you did 36 hours. So it's really a one-day fast, but you're doing 36 hours. So that's kind of the easiest way to do that. And that's a great way to get started with a water fast or, anything like that. So she did a 36-hour dry fast. The tooth pain was completely gone. And I said, well, why don't you try this? I said, why don't you try breaking your dry fast with a garlic enema? So it's an enema where you would take fresh garlic and boil it in water and then add the garlic juice to the enema and then do an enema. And she did that and passed probably 4 or 5 tapeworms that were about this long. And they were fish tapeworms, I feel, because she grew up eating sushi. So that's one of so many stories I could tell you, but I have crazy pictures of things that have come out of human beings that would blow your mind. And because I like to talk about the spiritual aspect, so I'll just throw this out there. This is some of my deep thoughts with the Lord that I have in the mornings, and I have had for many years. But I really feel like we're in a war against death, ultimately. And if you know what the Bible says, it says the last enemy that is defeated is death, right? But while we're on this earth, we're actually warring against the devil, we're warring against our own flesh, but ultimately we're warring against death. Now, none of us are going to escape death, but what happens is because of sickness and disease in our body, there's death that's building up in our bodies, and we call that things. We call that MS, and we call that Alzheimer's, and we call that cancer, and we put names on this disease process that's happening in our body, but I don't believe any of us were designed to have those things happening in our body. Now, again, I don't think any of us are necessarily going to escape death, but it doesn't mean our body should be degrading and debilitating and breaking down and, getting these massive tumors and parasites, right? I believe that's what we're at war against. And I say that because I see it in working with people. I see what comes out of people, and it looks like death. And sometimes people describe it that it smells like death. But if you have thick, black, rubbery, tar-like stuff coming out of your body during a cleanse, that was in there killing you, and now it's out. So that's the crazy part of what I do, and how what I do, I feel like so far beyond kind of mainstream natural health, where it's I don't know, change your diet and, feel better so you have more energy. That's all great. But no, there's real serious issues like destroying human beings that I feel like we can reverse by getting some of these things out of people's bodies. So I've been parasite cleansing people for 15 years since the beginning, before it was cool, before it was popular, before everybody was talking about it. I was parasite cleansing people, and I've seen nothing help more people than parasite cleansing. Nothing. I've seen head to toe eczema on children disappear in one parasite cleanse multiple times. So if you know anybody who has skin conditions or food allergies, or again, I don't want to get too far off topic, but man, parasites is it is not a third world problem, okay? It is a first world problem. All right, why fasting? Fasting's free. You'd actually save money on food if you ate less. Does anybody think food's expensive? Yeah. The most ancient, proven, time-tested, and valuable tool available. God designed it that way. So God designed the body to fast. God designed the body to go for seasons without food. That would have been normal throughout much of human history. It's pretty rare to have excess. And if you saw cultures that had excess, like the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, eventually, they ended up destroying themselves. And that's actually, man, I don't know why I'm getting into all this stuff today, but it's actually what Ezekiel said about Sodom and Gomorrah, that the sin wasn't, I don't want to say not sexual immorality, but it wasn't just sexual immorality. It was the sin of food, excessive amounts of food. You can see that that's what Ezekiel said about, what the Lord told Ezekiel about Sodom and Gomorrah. So anyway, my point is excessive everything is a big part of our downfall, right? So again, that's why excessive anything, right? TV, death scrolling, right? Who's guilty of death scrolling? I am. Okay, you can admit it. It's all right. My kids are my accountability. They're like, Dad, get off your phone. I'm like, why am I on my phone? It's so stupid, right? So, so yeah, God designed our bodies to fast. Animals in nature, if they're injured, they're fast. They don't eat anything. You're smiling like you know this. Oh, okay. There you go. And most animals will do it by default, and they'll growl if you get close to them because they know that they're going to wait until their body heals, and then when they're healed, they'll eat again. But humans don't. Sometimes we got this opposite mindset. Oh, you're injured? You need to eat something. Where did that come? I'm not hungry. Well, you still need to eat something. You won't be better, right? So if you're sick, you fast. If my children are sick or they get a fever or whatever, they just don't eat. I mean, if they ask for something, I'll give them a piece of fruit or something, but I never force food on somebody. Never force food on your animal. Never force food on a human being. Like, we've lost actually paying attention to what the body's telling us. And we're doing what we think is right in our own mind, right? So you look like a genius, because this was meant for practitioners. So this was like, if practitioners incorporate fasting into their practice, they look like a genius, because all you're really doing is invoking the healing power that exists inside every human being. And there's things I say that people are like, yeah, that makes sense. And then people totally get mad at me. But like, one of the things I say is, you don't have to be a believer in Jesus to get healed of cancer. How could you say that? Right? There's all kinds of people all over the world healing themselves of cancer and diabetes and all kinds of things. And it's like, it's because of God's natural created order. God spoke everything into existence to function a certain way. And you can either be in alignment with how God designed to function, or you can be totally out of alignment with how God designed things to function. Right? And I give silly examples, but it's like, everybody knows, like, gasoline goes in a car, and if you drink gasoline just because, why not? Like, that doesn't work, because that's like not what God designed to go in your body. Yet we can eat all this weird junk food and trash and not think it really matters. Or I don't know, it's just weird. Like I said, there's just like I think there's just a disconnect for whatever reason, that, like, I did a video on this. Let me see that video I did called God is Chemistry. You should totally watch that. But anyway, it's all about, like, God's natural created order. Everything that's happening in the body, in nature, in your, right? If you're trying to grow a garden, there's certain things you have to do. There's certain things you have to give it. It's because of God's natural created order. So my point is that everything's designed to function a certain way, and the body's designed to heal and repair itself if we'll let it. That's the key, if we'll let it. Let go and let God. So that's my favorite thing to say about fasting, is just, let go. If we can let go, and again, I'm guilty, we're all guilty. If we can let go of our indulgences, the things that we know we're over-consuming, the things that we justify, like, I'm not addicted to coffee, I could stop anytime. Well, let's see you try it for a week, right? So again, all the things that we struggle with, if we can let go of those things, our body's designed to heal itself. So that's what's amazing about fasting. So sickness, if you have disease, I believe fasting or partnering fasting with other therapies is very powerful. So fasting is the greatest remedy, the physician within. That's what Paracelsus said. He was a healer, like, around the Hippocrates time. So the reason we have sickness and disease is a couple of main things. And I'm not getting into the emotional component, because I definitely think trauma is a huge reason people have sickness and disease manifesting in their body, is through past trauma. And we all have past trauma, whether it's big T past trauma or little t past trauma. We all have trauma, because the world's broken, right? And so I definitely just at least want to acknowledge that, like, I think that's a reason that we're all struggling with certain things. But the main reason people have diagnosed diseases, and I would include the really bad things like cancer, or if it's just a more basic thing like a not that eczema can't be seriously bad, but some people just have chronic skin issues or whatever it is. It's these things over here. And I didn't do a comprehensive list, because I was at the Cellular conference and we talk about toxins, like everybody talks about toxins. So I didn't need to, like, rehash all that. But the reasons people are sick today, so if you know anybody does anybody know anybody who has, like, chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia or MS, or, like, everybody knows somebody, right? Okay, so if somebody has a diagnosis like that, they have parasites or mold or fungus or Lyme disease or environmental toxins like herbicides and pesticides, or heavy metals, or viral issues, or a combination therein. So if we change the way we did medicine, and instead of diagnosing and putting a label on somebody with a disease and say, oh, you have MS, if instead they come to me and I say, you have severe mold toxicity, to me, that's a way more powerful diagnosis, because now the person can get better, because now they actually know what the problem is. Now they can reverse that set of symptoms that gave them that label, right? Because all it is a label describing symptoms. There's no real value in a diagnosis. What's that? You get paid for it, yeah. So true. So, or you can prescribe a drug now, right? So accumulations is one that I'm passionate about, because I've seen this be a huge issue for me and a lot of other people I work with. So we have toxicity, right? We have herbicides, pesticides, mold, parasites, all those things. But we also have accumulations. So think calcifications, kidney stones, gallstones, cholesterol and plaque building up in the arteries. How many people are having heart attacks and strokes? These are accumulations. Fasting will clear all that junk out. Every time we have an accumulation, again, it's because we have an excess of something. Now, this is what I teach. You can choose to believe it or not, but I believe everything the body's doing is exactly what it's supposed to be doing, because we're fearfully and wonderfully made, and we're made in His image. And there's no reason to me that the body's just randomly failing or confused. I believe that's what the medical system believes, but I don't believe that. I believe if your body has a tumor, it's supposed to, that it's actually saving your life. What if we thought the disease was actually the cure? Because in reality, the disease is the cure. The disease is telling us the problem, because we have a good God who's a good designer, and letting us know your body's out of alignment and I need you to fix and correct some things so that you can live longer because I love you. That's what I believe. Totally different way of looking at health, right? I see that resonated with people, so I felt that. I felt like that needed to be said. And I tell people, whatever you're going through, your body's not broken. You're not beyond repair. Anybody listen to Forrest Frank? You guys got to listen to Forrest Frank. You got to listen to the song called Always. I sang the song at the Self-Work Conference in front of 1,000 people. Not because I'm a singer, because the Lord told me to. And then I had a gal came up afterwards, said she broke down weeping, and that I sang that song for her. And part of the song goes, you are loved, you are chosen, your body isn't broken, for every door He closes, a better one gets open. It's a really cool song. So check that out. So fasting, if you fast on the right things, if you fast on grapes and celery and juices and lemon, lime, things that will dissolve and remove plaques and calcifications out of your body, you can clean up your system. You can clean out your kidneys, you can clean out your liver. Does anybody know how long the cardiovascular system is in the body? How many miles? You've heard it. Yeah, so the conservative estimate of how long your cardiovascular system inside your body, inside your little body, the conservative estimate is 60,000 miles. Some people say as much as 100,000 miles. And your lymphatic system is 2 to 3 times more. So that's how ridiculously amazing your body is. And that's why people need to fast, because we've accumulated waste that needs to get out. And if we get that accumulated waste out, we'll live longer, healthier lives. I'm not going to say you're going to live forever, but you'll live longer, healthier life and don't have to die in misery of a degenerative disease. That's what I'm going for. Autophagy. So fasting accelerates the cleansing out of waste left by dead and damaged cells, known as autophagy. Auto means self, and phagein means to eat. So God designed the body to eat itself. It's brilliant. But it never gets a chance to do that if it's processing food all day long. Have any of you ever done a dry fast? Okay, you're not being honest right now. Oh, you go to sleep at night? Wow. So you've done at least an 8-hour dry fast, maybe a 10-hour. Has anybody done a 12-hour dry fast? Yeah, come on. So if you guys didn't dry fast every day, you wouldn't be alive. This is how God created it to work. All we're doing is extending that a little bit farther by doing it for a day, by doing it for 3 days, by doing juice, by doing other things. We have to rest, because when our body's at rest is when our body actually detoxifies. Your brain mostly detoxifies at night while you're sleeping. So we're just trying to help the process, right? So the body burns up old, dead, toxic. So the body's like a furnace. There's a scripture that talks about God as an all-consuming fire. And again, we're made in the image of God. So when you actually go on a fast, your body becomes an all-consuming fire. So everything that's not supposed to be there gets dissolved. Everything that needs to be repaired starts to get repaired. And the body heals in reverse. And I've experienced this. I need to do an extended fast because I haven't done one in a long time. I did a 40-day water fast when I turned 40, and I just turned 50 in May. So I did not decide to do a 50-day water fast because the 40-day water fast was hard enough. But I've done juice fasts, and I could tell you lots of cool stories, but one really cool story in this concept of that the body heals itself in reverse is I was doing a 40-day juice fast, and I was on day 28 or something like that, and I had this excruciating pain in my elbow. And nothing would help. It was like you couldn't even touch it. It was so painful. And I'm like, I didn't hit it. I didn't do anything. But when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I played very competitive high-level tennis and had really serious tennis elbow issues back then. And so what happened is that never fully healed. And so now I'm 28 days into a juice fast, and God is saying, oh, I'd like to finish healing that now. Is that okay? So isn't that amazing? That's how amazing our bodies are. But nobody teaches us this stuff. So I had a guy one time, I'll never forget, he was on a juice fast, same thing. All of a sudden, his shoulder was just killing him, and he couldn't figure it out. And the only thing he could think was he had a severe separated and damaged shoulder from high school football. And I'm like, I don't think it ever fully healed, and now God's healing it. So what I love to say is that God is always with us, and he wants to heal us, and he wants you to be fully whole, and he wants you to be fully well. I just think a big reality of it is we need to get the world out of the way of how God designed to heal it. And part of it is that's why I think we have to learn to die to the flesh and live a life more in the spirit, because our body will benefit from that, right? So what happens with fasting? Improved metabolism. You guys can ask questions if you want. I think there's all kinds of misconceptions out there about fasting, which I don't have a whole page on that. But people will say women shouldn't fast, and it messes up their hormones, and kids shouldn't fast. And again, it depends on what is your definition of a fast and what are you talking about. But I think it fixes metabolism. So if you have a metabolic disorder, what's an example of a metabolic disorder? You guys know this. An error of metabolism. What's a disease that's an error of metabolism? Diabetes, right? Diabetes is the classic metabolic syndrome, or whatever you want to call it. But if you have any kind of metabolic disorder, because you could also argue that cancer is a metabolic disorder. I could argue that most every disease condition is a metabolic disorder. But if you have a metabolic disorder, that metabolic disorder is always caused by an excessive amount of something. So how do you fix metabolism? Stop the excessive amount of something, because the body's designed to heal itself. So if you want to fix metabolism, you don't eat 7 meals a day to keep your blood sugar stable. That's ridiculous. That means you have a health problem. You have to put less in the body so that the cells can catch up, the organs can catch up, metabolism can catch up, and now everything can start to fire properly. But it can't do that if there's excessive things in the body. Does that make sense? Okay. Increased cellular energy. So same thing, man. People go on fasts, and I don't know how your body's going to respond. You could be one extreme or the other. You could be somewhere in the middle. But I myself have experienced juice fasts. I always tell the example of a friend of mine who was in his 40s who did a 40-day juice fast, and he's like, Vaughn, I just felt like I was in college again. I had so much energy. I didn't even know what to do with it. I was just outside playing sports all the time. How is this even possible? I'm not even eating. I couldn't get him to shut up. But then his wife did a 40-day juice fast, and she felt like junk the whole time. So just different things are going on in different people's bodies, and that's okay. We don't really know until we start to work through these things. She might have had a bunch of, gallstones or congested liver, or, there's all kinds of issues that could be interfering with. But my point is that if you free up resources in the body, you should feel better. You should have more energy. Your brain should be more clear. If anybody struggled with memory or brain fog or all that should start to work better if your body's able to clean up some old debris that's trapped in the body. Growth hormone, stem cell production. I did a short little video on this recently because I was doing CrossFit, and I was really getting into it because that's my personality, but I was doing this, like, whatever they call it, like a clean, and I felt my back just pop, like pop. And I knew I was done. And I couldn't walk. And the only thing I knew to do, I shouldn't say the only thing I knew to do because we have supplements and blah, blah, blah. But I thought fasting made the most sense. So I water fasted until it was completely healed. And it only took, like, I think 5-6 days on water. And I was like, I feel no pain. I worked back into doing juices and whatever, and never had a back issue. Now, I don't know what would have happened, but possibly if I wouldn't have done that, if I would have just ate more normal diet and be like, oh, it'll heal when it heals. I mean, who knows? I could have been 6 weeks. It could have been months. I don't know. But stem cells, everybody's heard of stem cells these days. They're actually taking stem cells from infants when they're born, collecting them, not in a bad way. I mean, they can do bad things too, and they're actually injecting those stem cells into people's knees and elbows, and they're healing like that. Why? Because a stem cell comes from your bone marrow. That's where all stem cells are produced. So basically, it's a brand new cell produced from your bone marrow. And what a stem cell is a cell that needs information, and the body tells it what type of cell it needs to become because of the requirements of the body right now. I hope I said that right. So if you take stem cells and put them in the elbow, immediately those stem cells go, oh, that elbow's damaged. I'm going to create some repair, whatever they make, and it's going to repair it. So but you get stem cells while water fasting. It's hard to get into stem cell production if you're just doing like a Daniel fast. That's not going to happen. But if you do dry fasting, if you do water fasting, there's some things that only happen if you dry or water fast. There's some things you'll never get into if you juice fast. So that's important to know. If your goal is stem cells or your goal is autophagy, you're really going to have to get into some water fasting and some dry fasting. Because sugars, you can juice fast for extended periods of time, but you're not going to get as deep into cellular repair with juice fasting because of the sugars that are in the juice. Reduce insulin resistance. So here's what I say: metabolic disorders, the cause equals too much. It's too much. So I think a lot of times with diabetes, we just like to be like, well, my parents had it, and it's genetic, and there's nothing I can do about it. And it's like, that is so not true. That is such a lie of the medical industry. That's like to try to convince that person that they need to be a on drugs for the rest of their life because that's the only solution. But you can allow the body to catch up. So anything reduces cravings, heals and resets the gut, mood, mental health, improved clarity. Options for fasting. This is just very, very beginner stuff. 12 and 12, that's where you just eat every 12 hours. You take a 12-hour break. 16-8 is very, very, very popular. I think it's great because it's an easy way to fast. So an easy way to fast is you eat dinner at 6 o'clock and you don't eat till noon the next day. And that's an easy way to do 18-hour fast every single day. And I'm going to say this, and I believe it's true, and I'm totally cool if you want to disagree with me, but I don't think there's any human beings in America that can't live on 2 meals a day, including professional athletes. There actually are professional athletes who eat 2 meals a day, and they talk about it. So if a professional athlete can get away with 2 meals a day, I think the average American can. So I don't know how we were convinced, that we have to eat all this food. I do think a big part of it is because we've created so many metabolic disorders, and we don't like having low blood sugars and feeling dizzy and blacking out. It's like more food is the solution. But less food is actually the fix. It really is. Do you have a question? Yeah.
But if you get out of the habit of it, then your body kind of gets, like, if you break it and you do an early breakfast or you do like breakfast, it's craving it. Can you talk about the craving?
Sure. Right. So her question was, I'll repeat the question. Her question was, is their family by default, a lot of times they kind of do the 16-8, skip breakfast, but if you skip it or get out of the habit of it, sometimes, cravings can come back. And yeah, so I don't know if I don't think there's a perfect answer to this question, but let me say this. Man, I have to be careful. If you did a water fast or a juice fast, within 2 to 3 days, your appetite completely disappears. And if you actually did that for an extended period of time, your appetite, you actually needing food, and I'm talking your body physically needing food, does not come back for 3, 4 plus weeks. Okay? So the argument is, and there's a lot of research out there that shows this, is if you're intermittent fasting, eating 2 meals a day, if you like, hey, I just want to eat 1 meal today, whatever you're doing, and you want something to eat, 95% of that thing you want is based off of your subconscious programming, and it's an emotional response. It's not a true physical need. So if that's true, that challenges me and all of us to dive deeper into emotional healing and actually discovering the root of our cravings and our addictions. And do I really need something, or is this just something that always made me feel good in my 20s when I was sitting in my room alone and depressed, or whatever, right? Or after I went through that divorce and I had ice cream every night for the next year because whatever, like we all have those things. So now, with that being said, if you fast, like intermittent fasting, your body does get used to it, and you can retrain, reprogram your body where all of a sudden that becomes easy and that becomes normal and it's no big deal. I had a gal, she's coming up. I have a testimonial on a gal who got off of 18 meds doing fasting in her 70s. 18 medications. So yeah, maybe that's not the greatest answer, but I hope that helps. But I really feel like the majority of the food we want, the cravings we want, what we eat is all based off of patterns, subconscious programming, our past. So if you really want to know like who you are, like at a spiritual level, fast. I'm telling you, man, it's a journey I haven't gone deep enough into, if I was to be honest, because it scares me. And that's just real. I've had people, I'll never forget this gal, man. Kay, just this gal. We have a 21-day kidney cleanse. And she tried that. She tried that thing 3 times. And she could not get past day 10. And she's like, I was just an emotional mess. All my thoughts from childhood came back, and I was just, I can't stop crying. So guys, like, gals, like our issues with food aren't physical. Nobody here is physically deprived of food. Right? So I'm just challenging myself and all of us to go on a deeper journey with God. Because really, this is what this is about. And you're not going to do that if food keeps getting in the way. These are just options. So you can do some beginner stuff, and then you can work into it. You can do a 3-day juice fast. You can do a 10-day juice fast. That's probably what I'll shoot for starting Monday. I'm probably going to do at least 10, maybe 14 days on juice because we're going to Hawaii August 4th, and I probably shouldn't be on a juice fast for a month in Hawaii. I don't know. Maybe I could do it, but I'm sure the kids are going to want to eat ice cream or something. Water fasting, 1 day a week, 3 days a month, 10 days twice a year, 40 days maybe sometime in your life, but you have to sanctify time. So when I did a 40-day water fast, I went to a cabin in Colorado. I did not work. You should not be trying to work your job or raise your children while you're doing a 40-day water fast. Just my opinion. Right? Yeah, see, good. I'm glad I got some good responses out of that. But you can do a 3-day juice fast raising kids. All right. Dry fast, no food or water. Try to increase it each time you do it, once a month. The longest dry fast I probably would recommend people do is 84 hours. That'd be like 3 days, like 3.5 days. Dry fasting is really, really, really popular in Russia. I don't know why Russia, but there's a lot of research and literature out of Russia. I have an entire book in Russian on dry fasting and the benefits of dry fasting, and they would work to dry fasting up to 11 days, no food or water. That is the capability of the human body, which is mind-blowing. How much old, dead, diseased tissue and waste are you going to burn out of your body dry fasting for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days? I haven't done it. I haven't gone beyond 3. I want to. It could be awesome. Let me throw this out there too, since we're talking about food and fasting, because I think it's really relevant. I just did a podcast with Dr. Sachin Patel, who's a pretty famous guy as far as like breath work and metabolism. He works with other doctors and practitioners all over the world. He's just amazing, amazing guy. And we were talking about metabolism. And when you think about metabolism and you think about energy, what do we normally think about first? Yeah, normally we think of food when we think of metabolism. He says food related to metabolism is about 5th on the list. But because we're so deficient in the other things and we don't have energy and we don't feel good, food becomes our crutch to give us energy and to make us feel good. What do you think the number one thing, most important thing is for your energy and your metabolism? The sun. Bingo. Sun is number 1. Number 2 is oxygen and breath work. Number 3 is free electrons, which is a whole nother conversation, but it's why you should be barefoot on the ground, because it's an unlimited supply of free electrons. Basically, guys, we should be living like the Native Americans, and somebody came in and messed that all up in a real bad way. I mean, we got hooked for whatever reason on Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman. We have 3 kids, so we totally binge watched Dr. Quinn medicine woman last year. Took us 9 months. We went through the whole thing. But I mean, and I know it's made up, but it was kind of interesting, just the battle between like the Native Americans and their way of life, and having these people come in to modernize them. And anyway, I don't want to get into all that, but my point is they were actually living in alignment with God's creation. And that's how we're supposed to be living. So basically, the more modern we are, the more money we have, the more things we have, the more we disconnect ourselves from God. Because connection with God is actually found in his creation. You can find him in your closet praying. But who here, tell me, I mean, maybe you shouldn't raise your hand, but I would be hard pressed to find a person that doesn't love being in nature. Whether it's the beach, whether it's the mountains, whether, why are national parks right now so ridiculously crowded? Like, I would love to go to the Smoky Mountains. I don't want to go sit in bumper-to-bumper traffic for 3 hours just to get through the park. Like, we are so starved for nature. There's a book written about kids, attention, ADHD, ADD. There's a book written called Nature Deficit Disorder. It's all about this. And the real issue with kids isn't that they have attention problems or whatever, it's that they're not getting outside. And I just did a little post on this, especially related to boys with ADHD on Ritalin. To me, it's criminal, because boys are made differently than girls, and boys are supposed to be outside shooting things and gathering things and building things, and they're actually, the rods and the cones and the colors they see and the shape of their eyes is different than girls, because they're actually designed to do physical things. And you put them in a classroom and call them ADHD, I seriously, I think it's criminal. Sorry, I just had to get that out. So this is the female I work with. She was 70 years old. She was on 18 prescription drugs, 4 blood pressure drugs, chronic fatigue, insomnia, excruciating hip pain, anxiety. She couldn't even sleep at night. She couldn't fall asleep at night. Poor memory, brain fog. She was diagnosed diabetic. She had high blood pressure and acid reflux. All of that went away. I had her do a protein shake for breakfast. So she got up in the morning, a little nut milk, little fruit, scoop of protein. Then she fasted all day long. If she felt like she needed something, she'd have an apple or a piece of fruit. And then for dinner, I just said, eat, fish and veggies, whatever. Just eat something really simple, really basic for dinner. And after the first month, because it's hard to deep fast right away. Like, if you've never fasted before and you're like, I'm going to do a 7-day water fast, I mean, maybe you'll do okay. It kind of depends on where your body's at, or it could just totally kick your butt. You may be like, I'm never going to fast again. That was like the worst experience ever. But after the first month, she was able, every Friday, she would water fast. And she got off of 18 meds. She had to buy new clothes. She ended up losing more than 30 pounds. So, but yeah, better energy, blood pressure. My hope is that people would give the glory to God. People might say like, oh, you saved my life, or you helped me so much, or whatever. And if you don't know, the word doctor is actually Greek for teacher. So all a doctor's really supposed to do is teach people, because a person is actually responsible for their own health, their own body, their own life. And so if you can teach people and guide people, and then they do it, like, the person's the hero, God is the hero, but it really should be ideally a journey with that person and God. It's just, I think we need people in our world today to guide us, because there's just so much confusion and conflicting information out there. So a lot of reasons people come to see me is because, I don't know, they've seen my videos, they trust me, or they had a friend that came to see me, or whatever, and I'm just trying to guide people into getting back in alignment with the God that created them. That's really my goal right there. How can I get you in alignment with the God who created you? And I just know that there's just things in the way. So how do we just get those things out of the way? Whether it's parasites, whether it's food, whatever, just something's in the way, because God is always ready to heal. It's in his nature. It's who he is. So he's not trying to keep anyone with their cancer to teach them a lesson. I believe that's a dangerous mindset. I've heard pastors tell their wives that they didn't pray enough and that's why their husband died of cancer. That person shouldn't be a pastor. Sorry. I don't know why I'm a little snarky today. I don't. Yeah, right. I think it's you guys, yeah. We can't hear that. That's okay. She did a little testimonial for us. She's super sweet. So the goal was Cellcore, so we didn't need to talk about that. But what I will say in this, so I have a fasting series on my website. It's on my YouTube channel. It's free. Anybody can watch it. I did a whole bunch of videos on fasting. I think it's great to take supplements while you're fasting. I think it's good to help things get out of your body while you're fasting. And there's so many things we could talk about here, but regardless of what type of fast you're doing, herbs, different therapies, red light, a far infrared sauna, doing a coffee enema. There's so many things you can do that will help accelerate getting those toxins out of the body. Because that's really the goal. What we're trying to do at the end of the day is we're trying to get toxins and poisons out of the human body so that that person can live longer, so that that person doesn't feel bad all the time, so that person doesn't have to be labeled with a disease, especially children. I'm working with multiple children right now. I've always worked with children. I just happen to have a lot of autistic children I'm working with right now. But man, when you see them, when you see nonverbal children that are 7 years old start talking again, whew, it'll mark you, okay? And the reason they're having these issues is because of everything we're talking about, toxins and poisons and things that interfere. So again, I said I'm feeling snarky today. There are certain things that doctors put in children that I believe is criminal because it destroys their bodies and their immune system. And I don't care what benefits they try to pretend they're doing for that child. They're not doing that child any service. And I've spoken out a lot about that over the years. But I believe poisons going into the human body, the body's reaction to that is the natural, normal response of the body being poisoned. So, Fast Like a Girl is a book written by Dr. Mindy Peltz. I recommend everyone read that if you really want to learn about fasting. I don't necessarily agree with everything she has to say, but I do believe it's a great guideline for women because this goes back to the women can't fast and it's going to mess up your hormones and blah, blah, blah. And it's not true. But a woman should fast as soon as she starts bleeding. As soon as you start your cycle, that's when you fast. It's when your hormones are the lowest, and it's when your body's trying to release. It's cleansing. That's what that is. It's a cleansing. So we're just assisting the cleanse.
It's crazy because, the stories are that's when you eat the most, chips or.
And that's emotional, right? Totally. Yep. Yeah, sure feels good in the moment. So yeah, that book's really good. The other time you can fast is I think 2-3 days after ovulation is another good time to fast. And again, it just depends on your definition of what a fast is. Anybody can eat 2 meals a day. There's an old Eastern saying that says 1 meal a day for a spiritual man or woman. So 1 meal a day for a spiritual person, 2 meals a day for a warrior, 3 meals a day for a glutton. So I know a glutton. So I know that sounds a little extreme because we all eat 3 meals a day, but the point is it's not necessary and it's excessive.
The government worked with something to say
Oh, totally. Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Yeah, I believe the government and the food industry and the chemical industry and the pharmaceutical industry, I mean, they're all in business together. Part of why this is a Babylonian culture is because we've all been taken over because of business, and they want to control and manipulate our dollars, right? And control people. And don't even go get me down that rabbit hole. But I believe we have to get out of the system. And I'm actually doing that with my business. I'm actually doing that related to taxes. I'm actually doing that related to, you know, with my family, related to what we put in our body because of like chemicals. And so this is just another way to do that, another way to separate ourselves from the systems that are there. The goal of the systems is bondage, is prison. So how do we break out of prison, right? When we don't, well, first of all, we have to realize we're in prison before we can break out, right? And most people in America don't actually realize that they're not free, right? So it's you guys. It's totally you. The reason I'm saying all these things, it's you, especially you two back there. All right. The Science and Fine Art of Fasting, Herbert Shelton. He witnessed 30,000 people on water fast. He said, there is not a disease known to man that I have not seen cured through fasting. Now, you can't cure death, but you can cure disease. God said, I am the healer of all your disease. Jesus touched everybody in the town and they were healed of all their sicknesses and their disease. He didn't heal them of death. That's the last thing that's defeated, right? So, do we need Jesus to touch us to heal us of all our diseases? Or can we walk in proper alignment with God and creation, and because we're inherently designed to heal, be free of sickness and disease? So to me, it's all God. It's all a miracle. It's just biblically, we think it's only through the laying of hands and a miracle that we're healed. But I see miracles every day because I see autistic kids that are nonverbal talk again. I see a mom who can't raise her kids because of mold toxicity get her life back and be able to raise her kids. I get to see those things every day. That's a miracle. She didn't have to be touched and instantly healed to experience a miracle. Again, these are just some of the things I believe that, again, people may or may not agree with. But so The Miracle of Fasting by Paul Bragg, very good book. I think Paul Bragg lived until he was like 97, 98. 11 types of fast. I was going to print this out for you, but it's really long. So you can go to my website, in the fasting section of my website, and there's a free PDF download, and it's 11 types of fast. So I go through a dry fast, water fast, juice fast, fruit and vegetable only, fruit and vegetable only, blah, blah, blah. There's 11 of them. The bare minimum fast, which is number 11, is a Daniel fast because it's biblical, and I think that's a great one, and it's a great place to start. So yeah, that's a free download. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is what I did with those 11 fasts is I give a testimonial on each one. And I talk about somebody who did one of these fasts and the healing that they experienced. I had a gal do a 10-day grape fast. Per her blood work, per her doctor, she did not have kidney disease anymore. And this was like a 10-plus year, every time she went back, it's worse, it's worse, it's worse, it's worse. And she literally did a 10-day grape fast, went to the doctor, and the doctor's like, your kidneys look normal. That is how powerful fasting can be. That's just one example. And then I did a fasting series on YouTube. You can get to it through my website. You can get to it through YouTube. But I talk about, the different fasts. I talk about therapies you can do while you're fasting, water, enemas, and different things you can do while fasting, supplements. There's a whole a whole bunch of stuff on there about fasting. So if you want some additional, and then I like this quote. I don't know if you've heard of the Desert Fathers. I like reading some of their stuff sometimes, but let us begin the fast with joy. Let us give ourselves to spiritual efforts. Let us cleanse our souls. Let us cleanse our flesh. Let us fast from passions as we fast from foods, taking pleasure in the good works of the Spirit and accomplishing them in love. From the Desert Fathers. 2 Corinthians 7:1 says, let us cleanse ourselves of all filthiness of flesh and spirit. So I just think it's interesting that there are biblical examples where we are told that we should be cleansing ourselves of things of the flesh, not just spirit. I also love 1 Thessalonians 5:23, that we would be perfect and blameless at the second coming of the Lord Jesus Christ in spirit, soul, and body. All right, I can end there. Yep. Like I said, I can talk about fasting for forever. So, questions you have or online? Okay.
Actually, would you mind doing this? Just his voice is weird.
Yeah, kind of get up close to it.
Close. Fasting and pregnancy.
Yes.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah, so fasting and pregnancy. So common question, I did do a video on it. It depends on, again, your definition of fasting. I would say to err on the safe side, a woman who is fasting and pregnant, I would say that fast is maybe just 3 meals a day. And cut out all the snacking, all the extras. You know, we don't need the extra burden on the body. I also believe, and again, this might be unpopular and people can disagree with me, but I believe a woman who's pregnant could do 2 meals a day and she'd be perfectly fine if they were, you know, healthy, nutritious meals. Here's an example I give people. And I'll ask this to you guys because you guys probably know somebody. Who knows somebody, whether it's yourself or somebody else, who struggled with extreme nausea and morning sickness, maybe to the point where they couldn't even get water down in the first trimester? Okay? Most likely that person went on to have a baby, right? Yet they might go days or weeks without eating anything. Why? Because their body was forcing them to get rid of toxins and poisons for the sake and the health of the mom and the baby. So for me to say a woman could eat 2 meals, oh my gosh, no way. Yet the body's forcing women to not put anything in their body for days or weeks because their body's so unhealthy. So we have to let go of like dogmatic ways of thinking. Like I said, I could always tell you so many stories, but I have had women. So here's a cool story I've shared online. My wife, first pregnancy, she had morning sickness, she had nausea. It turned out she had cholestasis, which is liver congestion, and she was breaking out in rashes all over her body. So we did enemas. I got yellow dock and I made a tea, but I boiled it down into a decoction and gave that to her every day because it's really high in iron and it's good for the liver. And so anyway, I did some things to help mitigate that while she was pregnant. She gives birth, healthy baby. We're like, we got to work on your liver. So we did liver cleanse, juice fast, in between pregnancies. She gets pregnant a second time. She's 4.5, 5 months into the pregnancy, and she's like, Vaughn, I know this might sound weird, but like, can we just make sure like the baby's healthy and that like the baby's still there? Because like, I don't feel, she felt great. Like she was even worried that the baby was still there or okay because she had 0 symptoms of anything. She felt great. It wasn't because she felt bad. She had tons of energy and she felt good, but she's like, I don't feel. And then it literally was like a week later, the little pooch popped out and baby's kicking and, you know, whatever, because she was already like 5 months in. But that's just a testimony to liver congestion. So I believe morning sickness and nausea and women can't keep anything down and women can't keep water down is liver, 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 liver. And then you got doctors that'll be like, well, if you don't have morning sickness, then something's wrong because it's normal to have morning sickness. Really? Maybe it's normal in our culture today. That doesn't mean it's supposed to be normal, right? So anyway, that's a cool little testimonial related to that. But so yeah, I just think pregnant women should eat a good nutrient-dense diet, but they don't need to overeat. They don't need to snack all the time. They don't need to eat 7 times a day. They don't get to eat, extra sugar and ice cream because they're eating for 2, right? I'm just joking. All the stuff we say, right? Go ahead, Joshua.
Question online was, in line with this one, was fasting while breastfeeding. Thoughts on that?
Fasting while breastfeeding, I would say the same thing. I think it'd be the same answer. Yeah, that just not overeating. You'd probably be fine eating 2 if you wanted to, 3 meals a day. Let's cut out the excess. What they eat will get into the breast milk and affect the breast milk. So if women, clean up their diet, it's definitely going to help the baby. So yeah, I'd say the answer would be virtually the same. Any other questions? Yes?
So talking about juice fasting,
Mhm.
is there any
Do you mind using
Oh,
that?
no, of course. Yeah. Okay. We're back. So in reference to juice fasting,
Yes.
so juicing fruits versus like vegetables,
Right.
is there like a concern with having like too much fruit and like sugar
Right.
that way?
Great question.
Okay.
Yeah. So the question was with fruits and vegetables, is it too much sugar with fruit? There's a lot of variables. In general, do more vegetables than fruit because of fruit sugar. At the same time, if you're working and you're busy and you're active and you're walking around and you're sweating, you'll burn up that fruit sugar like nothing. If you're super immobile and laying on the couch, you probably shouldn't overdo the fruit sugar. So there's not some perfect answer. If people have a lot of chronic yeast fungal issues, probably shouldn't overdo the fruit sugar. Doesn't mean you can't juice fast, but you should do more like 80% vegetables and like 20% fruit. If you're super active, and again, you're outside, you're sweating, like I can juice fast and I can mow the lawn and I can play tennis and like I can do most of my normal things. But you might need more fruit sugar because at that point, the main fuel you're getting would be from the sugars in the fruit. So does that answer it? Great.
Okay. Super nerding out.
I'm glad you're here asking questions.
So with the vegetable thing, so what about like vegetables that cause like oxalates? Like
Right.
so is that something to kind of plug into your formula of juicing? Or everybody's different?
I don't go there
Okay.
because I feel like it gets too much, too confusing, too restrictive. Like I can tell you why you shouldn't eat. I could go through every vegetable and tell you why you shouldn't eat it. Well, that one's high in lectins. Well, that one's high in oxalates. Well, that has anti-nutrients. It's a goitrogen. It's whatever, right? So if you do a lab test and you find out you have really high oxalic acid, which I can do, I just did one with a gal the other day and her oxalic acid was 300 and 140 is high. And I was like, maybe we shouldn't do lots of high oxalate foods. But the only reason we knew that was through a lab test. However, the main reason people have high oxalates they are a waste byproduct of candida yeast and fungal organisms. So most of the reasons people have high oxalate loads is because of infectious issues and infectious disease. And oxalates do matter because 70% of kidney stones are oxalate stones. And if you look under a microscope, it looks like a shard of glass, which is why it hurts like when it comes out. So oxalates do matter, but unless you know you have an issue with them, or you feel like you should be avoiding them for some reason, it's just, again, it's hard to, it's just my thoughts. It's hard to get caught up on every little thing. I always say, like, pick your battle. Is oxalates want to be the battle you want to fight right now? Like, okay. But if you're like, no, I just want to do a juice fast and I ain't going to worry about it, then great. Let's not worry about that battle right now. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. Really, the only things that are really, really high in oxalates would be spinach. The other things you wouldn't do on a juice fast that are high in oxalates, like peanuts and soy and some of those other things. Beets are high in oxalates too, but again, like if you don't have a known issue with those foods, I don't think I'd worry about it. In fact, if you're juice fasting, you're probably going to be working on your kidneys, and you're going to clean out your kidneys, and your kidneys are going to be working better, and your kidneys are going to flush all them oxalates out anyway. So if I get a few and some spinach, I don't know if I need to stress out about that. Does that help? Okay. Anybody else?
Parasite cleansing, and like what is the best one?
Sure.
Is there some way or a starting point from a parasite cleanse that you are like, you need to just do this?
Yes, absolutely. So parasite cleansing while fasting is one of the best things you do, because in having seen over 10,000 people, I will continue to see that the number one thing I've seen help the most people in 15 years of practice is parasite cleansing, period. Doesn't mean everybody has parasites, doesn't mean you have a major problem, but it's a pretty darn good chance. Okay, if you're, this is the test to see if you have parasites. The pulse test, right? Okay, so that being said, I mentioned the example of that gal who did a garlic enema and passed a bunch of tapeworms. I have hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of pictures that people have sent me of things coming out of their bodies. Because I like to let them know, is that mucoid plaque? Is that old waste? Is that liver flukes? Is that tapeworms? Like I try to give them an idea of what's coming out of them. And I also don't want people to think that it's just fiber and it's not really anything bad coming out, because our goal is to get toxins out. Dr. Clark has a parasite cleanse that we have in a little kit. If you've never done one, you could do the Dr. Clark one. It's pretty basic. That's the one I did use for years until I started working with Cellular. Now that I've been using Cellular, it is like next level, best of the best when it comes to getting parasites out of the body. So Cellular has a Para 1, Para 2, Para 3, Para 4. We have an advanced parasite cleanse that we created based off of Cellular products. Now, if I'm working with somebody, I'll tweak it for them. I just had a guy the other day, I put him on a parasite cleanse, but I added Para 4. The reason I added Para 4 is Para 4 has neem in it, but it's very good for candida, yeast, fungus, and mold. So Para 1 and 2 are going to work for intestinal parasites. Hookworms, tapeworms, ropeworms, whatever. Then the liquids, so a good parasite cleanse would have capsules and liquids. You need liquids to get into your blood, because we have protozoan parasites, we have microscopic parasites, we have strongyloides, we have all kinds of little critters that are in our blood and our lymph. And remember, it's 60,000+ miles long. We can look at a drop of blood and put it under a microscope, and we can see parasites in people's blood. So if you have parasites in one drop of blood, how many parasites might you have in your body? Right? It's freaky, I know. Parasitology is like fascinating. So Dr. Clark would be a good beginner. The Cellular Advanced Parasite Cleanse that we have the same thing for children. We have a children's parasite cleanse, but then we have an advanced children's parasite cleanse. And I would do it in order if you've never parasite cleansed before. If you want to talk to me later or send us an email or whatever, I can totally add other things. Enemas can help get parasites out. I've had people put a teaspoon of black walnut or a teaspoon of Para 3 or a good liquid parasite formula, seen parasites come out of people. Okay, crazy story. I had a gal who was pregnant and was so sick and unhealthy, she literally thought she was going to die. And this was an extreme case. I don't normally do this, but it was bad. She was depressed, suicidal, it was bad, and she was pregnant. So I had her do an enema, and I had her put 3% food grade hydrogen peroxide in the enema, just a small amount, like a teaspoon. She passed a toilet bowl full of worms. And continued to pass toilet bowls full of worms for a week straight.
My goodness.
And guess what? She felt better.
Where does that come from? What?
Crazy, huh? So these are real stories, real people. So parasites during a cleanse or a fast, great idea. We have a 10-day colon cleanse. I always recommend people do a parasite cleanse with the colon cleanse while they're doing a colon cleanse. If you're working on your colon, you just, well, try to get any parasites out if they're in there. And then make sure you're doing some liquids too, because that's going to get the blood-borne parasites. My favorite overall product for pathogens, let's just say that. So whether it's small parasites or bacteria or fungus or mold or viruses or anything, is a product called LDM 100, which is an herb called Lomatium dissectum. I think it's the strongest antimicrobial herb on the planet. Also CD kit, which is something called chlorine dioxide, which was my #1 selling supplement for the last 4 years because of the vid. And I wasn't even trying to sell it. People find out about these things. So yeah, there's lots of things you can do with parasite cleansing. But I like doing enemas and adding parasite herbs in it too, because I've seen that release a lot too. Yes.
This is kind of off subject, but it sparked something. Do you have any information on the various ways to use chlorine dioxide, like any resources? Or can you host a workshop?
If you want to, I could. Yeah, I could do a whole class on chlorine dioxide. Wouldn't that be
Right,
awesome?
there's so much.
Should.
Please?
That's a good idea. Okay. Yeah. I would look up. Okay, so the problem with our world right now is everything's being scrubbed. Anything related to natural health is being scrubbed. So it's really, really hard to find anything good these days. So I could see, if you emailed us, I could see what kind of guides and documents and PDFs I have, because I have a ridiculous library of everything. And I know that I have, what do you call them, like ebooks or PDFs on chlorine dioxide. If you wanted to try to find it, I would probably see, I don't even know what's out on the internet anymore, honestly, again, because of censorship. But MMS, Miracle Mineral Supplement, Jim Humble, if you can find any websites or anything, yep, he's the guy who found it. If you don't know the story, he was hiking in Africa and he had this water purifier with him, because that's what it is, it's a water purifier, and that's what you sell it for, is a water purifier. But I think there were 3 guys with him, and 3 guys, they all got malaria while they were out in the jungle. And malaria, you can be dead within a day. So you have to jump on it quickly. So all he had was this water purifier. So he put like a large amount, like 30 drops, and had the guys drink it straight. And they had vomiting and diarrhea and fever. And within 24 hours, all the guys were cured of malaria. So he actually went and told the president, or whatever the leader was of that country. And crazy story, true story, the American Red Cross started using it. Governments in Africa were using it to cure malaria. But what happened? Why did it all get shut down? Yeah, they were losing all of their funding and all their money for all the medications to treat malaria. And so they shut it down, because it's more profitable for a country to profit from drugs than it is to cure disease. And so that's a worldwide problem. It's a problem in America. And that's why my heart is to get people off of the man-made system and onto God's system of medicine, because God's system of medicine brings health and brings freedom. And the man-made system causes financial bankruptcy and prison and bondage to the drugs. And it doesn't bring about a quote-unquote cure. So, and I can say these things because these videos that we're doing now, I'm not putting on YouTube like my other videos. I'm going to put them behind a paid membership when I launch my new website early next year. So all of my videos that have been taken down off of YouTube, which I just had another one taken down yesterday. It seems to be weekly now, so it's accelerating. The video I did called the 5 Biblical Reasons Not to Vaccinate got taken down. All my cancer videos have been taken down. So yeah, it's crazy. It's real.
Can you speak to type 1 versus type 2 diabetes and how?
I can. Absolutely. So type 1 diabetes, I would strongly encourage you to go to masteringdiabetes.org. And we'll make this the last question because it's almost 12. Masteringdiabetes.org. Cyrus Kambata. Listen to his story, listen to his podcasts. He had type 1 diabetes in college, didn't know what was going on, was given all the insulin, take this much, here's your carb counter, and here's the diet you're supposed to eat. And after doing that a few months, he felt worse. And it's a really, really cool story. But basically, he was blessed in that he ended up connecting with a scientist who was like the world leading expert in researching glucose and sugar metabolism. And Cyrus actually went to work with him in the lab and dove into all the research and the literature. I have to share this because this is so amazing. Dove into all the research and literature and found out the way you cause insulin resistance in an animal or in a person is by giving them a high-fat diet. So fat causes insulin resistance and diabetes, not sugar. So right there, that's because that's totally contrary to what you hear. But what happens is when fats clog up the system, the cells shut down so that there's not cell death. Insulin can't get in. So what happens is now you have fats in the blood, insulin in the blood, and sugar in the blood. And now you eat a banana, your blood sugar goes up, you check your blood sugars, you see your blood sugar shot up to 200, you blame the banana. But the fats is actually what caused it originally. So, as crazy as it sounds, his diet is 80% sugar and carbohydrates, and he barely needs insulin. Because the fat is what was in the way. And I say that because that's really important in today's culture of keto diet, carnivore diet, fats are good for you, eat as many fats as you can, you need fats for your hormone, you need blah, blah, blah. It's not true. So that right there is probably shocking to a lot of people. Now you can do keto, but you have to be strict 100% keto and you can't come off. And when you come off, it's a nightmare. You've done it. There you go. Don't do it. Don't do it. Unless you want to live the rest of your life on keto, don't do it. Because it doesn't work. Because you just created a major metabolic imbalance in your body by eating keto. And you have to stay that way. And if you come off, your body's such a metabolic mess that now you can't process anything. Keto's dangerous to me. And I know, I put that on social media, I'm gonna get hate mail, and come on. But if you think about it, if you're looking at it from a design perspective, what God created us to eat? Fruits and vegetables. What's in abundance? The most abundant thing on the planet is fruit. So it's bad for us? Do you guys know Nate Bargatze?
Yeah.
Have you seen his fruit one? Oh my gosh, he's like, I love candy, but apparently you can't just eat it by the handfuls. And so, I started eating fruit. And then I had a friend who was like, fruit? There's a lot of sugar in fruit. And he's like, okay, yeah, when that becomes a problem, I'll let you know. He's like, introduce me to your fat fruit friends. I want to meet your friend who's addicted to pineapple and can't fit through the door. So when he says it, it's way funnier. But it's pretty funny. So yeah, I'm a big believer in eating fruits and vegetables. I'm fine with eating healthy proteins. I'm not a vegetarian or a vegan, but we eat meat probably 2-3 times a week. I don't buy into you have to eat 150 grams of protein a day, or just all the stuff, all the extreme diets out there. I think the best diet you could eat is just a balanced diet full of fruits and vegetables, honestly. Now, you might have to tweak that depending on the person. But if your goal is weight loss, if your goal is metabolism, if you're trying to heal your thyroid, if you're trying to heal diabetes, if you're trying to heal anything related to metabolism, you have to eat fruits and vegetables. But you can't do that if you're eating too many fats, because you create a metabolic conflict. Did that answer your question? I had a kid who was diagnosed type 1 diabetes. We immediately ran the lab tests, and I found him extremely high in a virus called parvovirus, and hopped on PubMed and found multiple research studies linking parvovirus to autoimmune diseases, including type 1 diabetes. So I believe type 1 diabetes is triggered by infectious disease. I believe viruses and parasites cause type 1 diabetes. Again, I don't think it's supposed to happen. Yes. Yes. But so do humans. Don't farm animals get parasites? But not humans, right? Let's deworm the cat and the dog, but you're good. Don't worry about you. Just because you got 7 cats, you probably didn't get any parasites. Yes.
Sorry, I'm changing something on that. As far as like mixing, so what's a good resource or a way to know when you're taking different supplements or herbs, like what you shouldn't be mixing or that could counteract? That's just the way I think.
Yeah, there's not. So related to pharmaceutical drugs, the general rule of thumb is 2 hours. So 2 hours before or after pharmaceutical drugs. With herbs, there's not really any issues with interactions. The only exception to that would be binders. So clay, charcoal, things like that bind onto things. You have to be careful because you don't want to bind something and it's not going to work. But outside of that, taking herbs together and blending them together is the best way to do it and the safest way to do it. So this goes back to my creed. A creed is a set of we believe statements. I just did a video series on the creed, but one of my beliefs related to the creed is we believe that the body understands God's creation over man-made synthetics. So what that means is if God made herbs and plants for us, your body knows what to do with those when those go in the body, even if you put 7 different types in there. However, if you put a pharmaceutical drug in there, because it's a man-made petrochemical, because of chemistry, it's forcing an action on your body that you can't stop or control. And because it's contrary to how God designed it to work, it causes negative side effects because it's damaging something, because it's not something God created to be in the body. Does that make sense? So I don't even remember what the question was. Oh, so yeah, herbs and taking things and mixing things together is, yeah, perfectly fine. Yeah. All right, should we end it? All right, sorry, I just can answer questions all day long, so you guys are awesome, hanging out. Thank you.